Fiji Untold.
Bulavanaka and welcome to Fiji Untold. If you're a fan of travel, history and of course the supernatural, then you've come to the right place. We'll be uploading videos very regularly, so make sure that you hit that subscribe button, follow us and of course give us a big thumbs up so you don't miss out on any of the content. Today we'll be taking you for a walk through Thurston Gardens, having a look at the history, the myths, the legends and of course some ghost stories of these beautiful gardens. The site of Thurston Gardens is where the people of Suva originally lived before they were moved to Suvavo, or New Suva, in 1881. The first botanical gardens was built near Waimanu Road in 1881 before it was moved to Thurston Gardens in 1913 and named after the 5th British colonial general who commissioned the first botanical gardens in 1976. So that's the history of Thurston Gardens in a snapshot. Now let's go and discover the untold Thurston Gardens. All right, everyone, so here we are down at Thurston Gardens, and as you can see, it's an absolutely beautiful day down here. Now, one thing that we need to mention is back in the day when it used to be the inhabitants of the Suvavo people that lived in Thurston Gardens, the area of Thurston Gardens, Government House, and also parts of Albert Park and out to the Necessa Police Barracks. During the wars with Rewa, it's actually said that around the entrance here at Thurston Gardens is that there actually are some grave sites, in particular a chief that is buried around here. So it's said that around the entrance here, whether it's in front or as you actually go inside, I'm not too sure exactly where the actual grave site may be, but there are some interesting things that we need to have a look at. And one of the things that I wanted to have a look at, which is still seen to this day, is the foundations of a temple that was here from back in the time when it was a village. And it's really inconspicuous because as you look around, it's really pretty. As you can see, there's lots of people here during the day having picnics and just spending times with their family and their friends and just kind of chilling out underneath the trees because it's such a hot day down here in Suva. And you know, honestly, sitting in a nice cool shade of a tree right next to the beach, which is just over there, or the foreshore, you get those nice coastal winds that come through. So it is a really, really beautiful place down here to relax. But as I mentioned, one of the things that I wanted to come and explore and have a look at is the foundation of a temple. And apparently the temple is the Naleka's temple from back in the day, and you can actually still see it. So as you look over here, you can see the rocks that are around the perimeter of a raised section. So let's go and have a look. Come with me and let's go and see what it's all about. This is an example of a bure kalo, which is a spirit house or a temple. These temples were generally built in raised foundations and they had stonework around the base, and they varied from about 1 meter to 7 meters in height. The bure kalo had a very special place in Fijian villages, especially in pre-Christian times, as they were really where the priests lived, and in those times the priests were known as the mouthpiece of the gods. The bure kalo was generally the grandest building in the village, and in many cases it was even bigger than the chief's house. And here we have it. So this is the foundation of the temple of Naleka. Now, what is a leka? For everyone that's out there that don't know what a leka is, it is very similar to European folklore and the myths and legends of dwarfs. So here in the Fiji Islands, we also have myths and legends of dwarfs, which we call lekas. And they're said to be about 2 feet high, hairy in appearance. And back in the day when this site used to be inhabited by the original inhabitants and the villagers that used to be here in Thurston Gardens and the surrounds. According to legend, this was actually the foundation of a temple for Naleka, and people would used to come here and worship this deity and provide offerings and so forth. So if you ever want to come down and have a look and find it for yourself, from coming in from the main entrance of Thurston Gardens, which you can see over here, you just follow the path along and there's this beautiful massive big Evi tree which you can see right there. So the foundations of the temple of Naleka is here on the left hand side of that massive big Evi tree, and there are stories, especially at night time here in Thurston Gardens, that sometimes they actually see lekas that run around and make appearances here within the garden and the sites around. Alright, so as we continue through the garden, something that I want to let you know about is during the original occupation of the Suva people and the village that was on this site, there was a lot of war, there was a lot of scrimmages that took place, and needless to say, there was a lot of people that died, particularly in a page of history of Fiji, which is when the Raroton people tried to subjugate the people of Suva. So as I said, a lot of bloodshed and a lot of people had unfortunately lost their lives. So there are stories of people seeing warriors full dressed up in Fijian traditional attire that are seen also around the gardens itself. And there's also stories of people seeing women, children crying in their old traditional Fijian attire, what they used to wear in the Fijian villages from that time period. And they've been seen crying up in this area near the museum, which we'll also go and have a look at. But I was also speaking to a lady that used to work in the area around here, and she told me as part of her spiritual walk that she'd always go and do prayer walks around the Albert Park area, and of course coming through from Albert Park, coming past Thurston Gardens. So they'd come through to pray around this area because they know how active the site is. She was telling me in her opinion that this site over here, especially around the museum, is actually a portal. But we'll talk about that a little bit more as we talk about the museum. However, as she'd continue and she'd come past her prayer walk along the footpath which is there, it was a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon, and she was telling me how hot it was that day. So when her and her friend, as they were walking past the gardens, they were obviously dripping with sweat because it was just such a hot, humid day here in Fiji. However, as soon as they came past the gardens, she told us it just emitted a coldness. There was such a cold air that just came out in the entire area, which is really strange because it was such a hot day. But as she said, as she was walking past on this Sunday and doing her prayer walk, also coming from the garden, she started to hear moaning and crying and people in just basically turmoil. So they tried to see where the noise was actually coming from within the gardens, but they could not pinpoint an exact place where that noise was emitting from. And so they just kept on hearing that moaning, that screaming, that crying, of basically people in despair. I had mentioned to you guys about about ladies being heard, being seen, babies crying, screaming and so forth. And this is actually one of the sites where they actually said that they had seen a full body apparition of a lady sitting down here in the corner of the museum, outside the corner of the museum, crying with her baby, holding them, and apparently she was very, very fearful. Almost like she was scared that something was trying to come and attack her and kill her. Again, they are dressed in period dress of the era, which was traditional Fijian attire. What had actually happened to them, I cannot say, but your heart really goes out to them hearing stories like that and just imagining the fear that they must have had and what they had actually gone through. Women in pre-Christian times were hunter-gatherers. They maintained the household and raised the children. However, they were also used as a prize. An ancient Maori saying goes, men die for land and women, and the same could be said in Fiji during this era, where men raided villages, were killed or enslaved, and women were taken as trophies and used as a political pawn through marriage alliances. Alright, so here we have the clock tower and of course the rotunda, and if you ever come to Thurston Gardens there is no way that you will be able to miss this prominent site. So the clock tower was actually erected by Henry Marks in memory of course the first mayor of Suva City, Mr. Marks. Now Marks and of course his wife were aboard the SS Empress, which was a Irish vessel, and during their visit to Canada unfortunately the ship actually sunk, which killed a lot of people that was on board, of which two of the passengers that passed away was of course the first mayor of Suva, Marks, and his wife. Now this clock tower and of course the rotunda here. We had talked about the scrimmages and the warfare and the bloodshed and of people dying from the original Suva village that was erected on the site here at Thurston Gardens. And one of the stories that has been reported is underneath this clock tower and of course the rotunda there is actually a mass burial pit. It's said that there's a lot of people which are buried there, and as a result of that it actually affects the clock tower. So at the time that we're actually filming this content, it's 3:15 in the afternoon, and one of the things that is said, no matter how many times people actually come out, the workers come out and fix the clock, technologically there's nothing wrong with the clock and it gets fixed, but it never keeps the right time. So as I said, it's around 3:15 in the afternoon here, and as you look at the clock at the present, it's 9:15. It's said that when the people that fix the clock comes out, they fix the clock, it'll probably work for the next day or so. However, it'll always go back to not working again, and that's attributed to it being built on top of a burial site here at Thurston Gardens. Alright, so as you make your way up to the museum, you'll come through these two stones which are placed out here, and it's really easy to miss them, but they are of significance. So the one on the left hand side you'll see here is actually one of the killing stones. So in times gone by, when the warriors would kill their foes, they'd actually bring them to this stone and they would actually club them to death just to kill them or to be cannibalized. The one on the right hand side is what's known as Navoto. Now, Navoto is actually the Ngao dialect for frog, which is in Bowen dialect, Boto. So the legend is that this rock actually has a spirit which is captured within it. They say it is a spirit of a frog deity, and there are stories that have been associated with it when people come and try to exorcise the spirit out of the rock, that it actually does appear as a frog which is about 1 meter in height. So these are the two rocks, the killing stone on the left and Navoto, which is on the right. We've discussed some of the most ancient deaths. Now let's have a look at one of the most recent. The latest recorded death that has happened here at Thurston Garden occurred in the early morning of November 28th, 2021. Whereby some council workers, as they were doing their rounds, came into the bathroom here, located in the northwestern side of the gardens, and found the body of a 21-year-old medical student inside one of the cubicles. I don't really know exactly which cubicle it was that she was discovered in. However, what was noticed was a very strong smell of chemicals that was found in these bathrooms, and it seemed to linger from these bathrooms within the next couple of weeks after her body was discovered. There has been stories that from time to time, as staff and people pass by these bathrooms, that they do get a faint smell of that same chemical that was found after her body was discovered inside. Manakabaka Levu, and thank you for joining us on Fiji Untold as we explored Thurston Gardens. If you liked our video and you want to catch the next one, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a big thumbs up, and of course, follow us. Mode, and see you next time.